must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. here in Nairobi. I trust that your day is coming up well. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in from across the globe. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and this is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news that is making headlines across the continent of Africa. And indeed, we have a lot in store for you. And so let's just start off, and we are starting off with the current crisis on the continent, and that is from Ethiopia. And let's see the latest there from Ethiopia. And fighters of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, have been seen trying to regroup outside the city of Mekelle just days after losing the state capital. That's according to Ethiopia Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who just days earlier had declared the conflict over. The head of the TPLF said his forces would fight on, indicating that the conflict might not be completely over. Prime Minister Abiy claims that the TPLF's fighters who fled Mekelle are in his sight. And he said that the federal army didn't attack because the retreating TPLF fighters had their families and abducted soldiers with them. The head of the TPLF, Gabriel Michael, denied he was in the area, but admitted that his troops were close by. Earlier, he said the TPLF would fight on as long as the federal troops, which he called invaders, were in their land. The hundreds are believed to have been killed from both sides since fighting began 4 weeks ago, and Mr. Abiy said no civilians have been killed by his troops. But since the federal government has imposed a widespread communications shutdown, that claim is impossible to immediately verify. And then we move to Burundi, and the Human Rights Watch has accused Tanzanian authorities of gravely abusing at least 18 Burundian refugees and asylum seekers since last year. In a new report, the Rights Watch group says Tanzanian police and intelligence services forcibly disappeared, tortured, and arbitrarily detained at least 11 Burundians for up to several weeks in abyssal conditions in police station in Kibondo, Kigoma region. Tanzanian authorities forcibly also returned 8 of them to Burundi, where they had been detained without charge, while 3 were released in Tanzania. The report says 7 other refugees and asylum seekers have been arrested and forcibly disappeared since January this year. The Human Rights Watch report has said more than 150,000 live in Tanzania camp. Burundian refugees live in Tanzania camps, whom many fled violence in Burundi after the then President Pierre Nkurunziza's decision to run for a disputed third term in 2015. And then we go to Algeria, where Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has left a German hospital and will be returning home soon. A statement from the presidency has said the Algerian president was flown to Germany for treatment in hospital on the 28th of October after he had tested positive for coronavirus. There has been very little that has been revealed to the public about his condition, which fueled speculation and concern among Algerians on social media about their missing president. The last communication from his office was in mid-November, when it said the president had completed the COVID-19 treatment protocol without indicating the date of his return home. And then we go to Ghana, and the state funeral of former Ghanaian President Jerry John Rawlings will be held on the 23rd of December. The funeral planning team has announced the ceremony will be held at Independence Square in the capital, Accra. The former president died on 12th of November at the age of 73 in a hospital in the capital after short illness. He served as the head of state and president of the West African country between 1981 and 2001. And we go to Mali, where 3 military bases housing foreign forces in northern Mali have come under separate attacks within the space of a few hours, and that is according to official reports. The camps in Kidal, Menaka and Gao were hit by indirect fire on Monday morning, said Thomas Romigue, a spokesperson for French forces who have more than 5,100 personnel spread across the region. No deaths or injuries were reported, and the only damage was to a United Nations base in Kidal. Head over to Nigeria, and security forces and volunteer vigilante groups in the northeastern Nigeria are searching to find people still missing after dozens of civilians working in rice fields were slaughtered by armed men over the weekend. That is Boko Haram. Locals say they had recovered 43 bodies after Saturday's attack in villages near Maiduguri, the capital of the restive Borno state, which has been plagued by an armed campaign for more than 10 years now. Amid divergent figures, the United Nations late on Sunday amended an earlier statement putting the death toll at 110 people and saying that tens of civilians were ruthlessly killed and many others were wounded in the brutal assault that was led by men on motorcycles. In the statement, Edwin Kalon, the United Nations humanitarian coordinator in Algeria, also cited reports that reveal women may have been kidnapped and called for their immediate release and return to safety in Zambarmari village, where a funeral was held for the victims of the attack on Sunday morning. A local resident said no one knows the exact number of people that were possibly killed that fateful Saturday morning. And then we come to South Sudan, where Amnesty International is urging the United Nations Security Council to renew its arms embargo on South Sudan, saying violence, atrocities and war crimes against civilians have quadrupled this year despite a ceasefire and formation of a unity government in February. The Security Council first imposed an arms embargo on South Sudan on May 2018, which it renewed a year later and again in May 2020. Brian Kastner, a senior crisis advisor and weapons investigator at the New York-based rights group Amnesty International, told South Sudan in Focus the embargo is needed because government forces do not use their weapons responsibly, adding that they are often the ones committing the atrocities themselves. In a report Amnesty International submitted to the Security Council last week, ahead of a midterm review of South Sudan's arms embargo to be conducted sometimes before December 15th, the rights group reported numerous cases of extrajudicial executions, forced displacement, rape, torture and destruction of civilian property by government and former opposition forces from April to June 2020 in central Equatoria state. Now, the South Sudan People's Defense Forces, South Sudan's People's Liberation Army in opposition, and the National Salvation Front clashed repeatedly in central Equatorial state, where government forces attacked civilians who were accused of supporting rebel forces, and that is according to Kastner. Head over to Cameroon, and the humanitarian organizations in Cameroon have launched a program to reunite with their families the increasing number of children who have fled the Boko Haram conflict and also the crisis between government and in the English-speaking regions. The groups say the efforts were launched after a number of such children jumped from about 10,000 to 25,000 in major cities within 3 weeks. Now, this is a crisis. And, this is something that we keep talking about here. How do we have over 25,000 children who have been separated from their parents because of this conflict that has been ongoing and now adding to the Boko Haram problem there in Cameroon? And a lot of them are from the Anglophone region there in Cameroon. Now, among the children who are ready to return to their families are teenagers who fled economic hardships caused by widespread of COVID-19 as well. And of course, so far, a couple of children have been returned, and there are police officers and representatives of humanitarian organizations who are working to see that these children are reunited with their families, and a lot of them are in Cameroon's capital there in Yaoundé. And then we go back to Nigeria. And some Nigerians on Monday lambasted the Senior Special Assistant Media and Publicity to the President Muhammad Buhari for saying that the farmers who were killed by Boko Haram did not obtain military clearance before going to the farm. Shehu, who made this comment on Monday on an interview with BBC, stated that the government, he's quoted as saying, the government is sad that this tragic incident had happened. 43 or thereabouts of innocent farm workers, most of them had their throats slit by heartless band of terrorists. People need to know that it is like in the Lake Chad Basin area. According to him, although much of those areas have been liberated from Boko Haram terrorists, there are a number of spaces that have not been cleared for the return of villagers who have been displaced. He said much of those areas have been liberated, and some of these places are still unsafe for anybody to return. So ideally, all of these places ought to pass the test of military clearances before farmers or settlers resume activities on those fields. So this is what this person said, the senior special assistant of media and publicity in the office of President Muhammadu Buhari. In short, he's speaking on behalf of the government, and what he's saying then, there are actually some areas there in the northern part of Nigeria that have been designated for Boko Haram, because what else is he saying? If you need to go back to your village, and what he's saying is you require a military clearance for you to be told now it's safe for you to go. What kind of ridiculousness is this? And if at all they already know these are places that are prone to Boko Haram, and so they know the Boko Haram presence is there, why have they not done enough to ensure that they rid Boko Haram from these places? So people will continue being displaced, and Nigerian army will do nothing to go and ensure that these places are safe so that people can return back to their villages. This is so ridiculous that it just does not even make any sense. And so he wants to, what looks like, and from the comments I was reading from a lot of Nigerians online, he's sort of blaming the people who died for their deaths. Like, I mean, this is your fault. Why did you go back? What do you mean? The government, if it's coming out and telling Nigerians that, we are failing in offering the security and we are not able to secure you in certain places, and they look like they've surrendered or even given up, or, I mean, they sound so helpless in this regard, and coming from a person that is deemed to be speaking on behalf of the government and on behalf of President Buhari himself, I think that is worrying. And you owe the people of Nigeria the security that they deserve, and so you cannot, what do you mean I need a military clearance before I can access my farm, before I can access my home? And this has been going on for a long time, the insecurity there in Nigeria. It does not make any sense at all. And so you cannot blame people for just trying to do their normal activities and just being normal, villagers there working on their farms. You cannot blame them that you failed to offer a security. By the time this number of people have been killed, and the government is saying there are 43, and the UN is saying about 110 people were murdered, where is the local security in that area? Where is the army? Because that's such a place that there's supposed to be a presence of the Nigerian army. Where were they, or where are they? Why are they not there? If the villages are unsafe, have you now given up on the villages and left them to Boko Haram? So when Boko Haram gets tired and leaves the villages, now you can tell people, okay, it's fine and it's safe, you can go back to your villages. Or what is this person trying to say? Because I really don't understand. All right, let's go back to South Sudan, and tension is brewing in the South Sudan Transitional Government as two main signatories trade blame over the delay in the formation of regional governments and the National Assembly. Since July, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has refused to formally nominate Riek Machar's nominee for the governor of Upper Nile State, Johnson Olonyi, whom he considers a warmonger and not suitable in the power-sharing agreement. Now, President Kiir now wants Mr. Machar the first vice president and the leader of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement in opposition, SPLM-IO, to write an undertaking to take responsibility should General Olonyi break the truce. Speaking with church elders from All African Conference of Churches and World Council of Churches who had visited him to discuss the delay of implementation, President Salva Kiir said The General Lonyi remains an active soldier who operates outside the territories that are controlled by SPLM-IO or by the government. However, SPLM-IO has now threatened not to submit the names of its nominees for local government and other positions if General Olonyi is not appointed, which could further delay the implementation of the government chapter of the September 2018 peace agreement. Lam Jok, the SPLM-IO deputy representative to Kenya, said that this is President Kiir's strategy to delay the agreement. And we shall just look at what is happening there in Sudan in a bit, in South Sudan, and still staying with South Sudan. And the political momentum has eroded after President Salva Kiir locked the opposition out of the government's decision-making process, a United Nations panel of experts on South Sudan has said. Part of the report said that within his coalition, the president has turned the Minister of Presidential Affairs, Nian Deng Nian, to counter the security primacy of the Director General of the Internal Security Bureau of the National Security Services, Lieutenant General Akol Kod Luke. Now, however, the deal states that the new unity government is founded on the premise that there will be collegial collaboration in decision-making and continuous consultations within the presidency to ensure effective governance during the transitional period. Since the formation of the presidency in February, key accountability measures, including the hybrid code, have not been implemented. This has been attributed to political and security disputes within the peace presidency, stalling the implementation of the 2018 peace agreement. In the report presented to the United Nations Security Council on Wednesday last week, the panel said this has led to abuse of human rights. It notes that SSPDF and SPLA-IO have continued to commit serious human rights violations against civilians. The experts told the council that it has also led to conflicts that have killed and displaced civilians in Jonglei and the Greater Pibor administrative area. See the problems there also with South Sudan. And then we end with Uganda, and several people have been injured as security forces dispersed supporters of Ugandan presidential candidate Robert Kyagulanyi, also famously known as Bobi Wine, in Kayunga near Kampala. 4 members of his campaign team have been injured. One of them, identified as Bobi Wine's music producer Dan Magic, was hit in the face. A police officer who is part of the security detail given to presidential candidates by the Electoral Commission also suffered head injuries. Now, almost 2 weeks ago, 54 people died in protest as the candidate supporters called for his release from detention. He had been arrested at a campaign rally. Bobi Wine was later charged with violating pandemic restrictions on gathering of crowds and granted bail. Ugandan's President Yoweri Museveni condemned protesters and warned opposition politicians who he said misled young people to get involved in violence. Quite interesting, and 54 died during those protests. And President Museveni really, perhaps those lives really don't matter to him. As a head of state, 54 of your citizens have died. I don't care under what circumstances. And a majority of them were died from extrajudicial killings there by the police. And you will not even acknowledge that this is wrong. Instead, you continue. Listen, this is just outrightly wrong. And we know Uganda is set to go to its election next month. We're in December, so next month is January. So Uganda is meant to go to its elections earlier next month there. And of course, as the situation is in Uganda, it's not a level playing field. And of course, the government has an upper hand. And right now, the candidates there are not supposed to be campaigning to have physical campaign rallies because of COVID-19. And so President Museveni keeps doing this. Look at him. He was talking while in the church where he gave a very weird sermon there, saying people will be killed, and acknowledging and not even caring that this amount of people died in his country. I mean, he must be so cold-hearted to even think it's okay. So this happened today. Bobby Wine supporters there were injured, and even the police that is part of his security detail there was injured, and so a couple of people have been injured during today's event. So let's just see that scientific campaign is not truly working there. They're not supposed to be campaigning physically, but what can you do? They're supposed to be campaigning using the media, but as we know, in Uganda, the government has full control there in the media in that country, so they decide. So if you're a media house and you go against a directive by the government, and the government of President Yoweri Museveni will not hesitate but close down your station or your newspaper, as we have seen, because they operate under a lot of intimidation there in Nigeria. Okechukwu, is it Okechukwu or Ohochukwu Chewuba? Good afternoon and thank you for watching. And a lot of stories coming there from Nigeria that is quite worrying. But most troubling is this person here that the deputy communications speaker of the office of President Buhari, who is now blaming the victims of that brutal, merciless attack on Saturday. He said they were not supposed to go there. Matter of fact, they were supposed to be cleared. His name is, what is his name? But he is the Senior Special Assistant Media and Publicity to President Muhammadu Buhari. His name is Shehu, and he came out and said, it is the fault of the farmers that were murdered. They were supposed to clear up with the armies for them to access those areas before they could go to the farm. What has Nigeria become? Have we now left the villages to Boko Haram? So after Boko Haram is done with whatever it is doing there and shifts perhaps to another place, and the government can tell you now you can come back to your villages, because the last I checked, these areas, Boko Haram has been reigning terror, and the government has done very little to beef up the security around these areas, the northern part of the country. And so Boko Haram has just been running amok there in Nigeria, and people have been uprooted from their villages for years now. And so they're just places where people go to farm, but they cannot really stay there because it's very unsafe for years on end right now. And so the government of Nigeria has also seems to have given up to even try to ensure that they change the situation in regards to the security. And it's just very frustrating. I don't know why Nigerians are not as frustrated as perhaps the rest of the people in the world are, because President Buhari has failed in his mandate. President Buhari has proven that he, being a former general, all right, he's a retired general, President Buhari, he knows very little about security, apparently, which is so weird, because we would expect somebody who has been in the army, who knows much about security, would do a better job in providing that or ensuring that that is provided for his citizens there. But that has not been the case with retired General Buhari. Instead, it has been the opposite, and insecurity has continued to thrive in Nigeria. If it's not kidnappings, if it's not the banditry, if it's not the herdsmen attacking another section of Nigeria, it's just insecurity after insecurity after insecurity. And this is very alarming. And I would urge, especially the people there, the policymakers in Nigeria, to right now do something, demand for actions, demand for laws, find out what is happening with the security apparatus in your country, because this cannot be taken as business as usual. This cannot be allowed to continue to happen. People cannot just ride on motorbikes. When they're riding on motorbikes, one, motorbikes are so loud. And second, there must be so many of them to come and kill this many people at a go, and within a very short period of time. I'm sure there were so many of those Boko Haram militants. And how did they approach this particular village without any security detail noticing, knowing very well that this place is already volatile, this place is already vulnerable to Boko Haram, and their presence is there, and they can access that village very, very easily. Why do we not have security details around that place to protect the lives of the people, just in case? How is it that every time these things happen, the security in Nigeria are caught flat-footed? And how is this has been let to continue to happen as if it's normal. That is the part I don't understand. And President Buhari, stop with the tweeting, stop with the sending of condolences. Enough is enough. Do something to ensure your people are safe. Do something to address the insecurity in Nigeria. Do something that will stop us counting these dead bodies every now and then, and the mayhem that Boko Haram is causing there in Nigeria. So hopefully this situation and these murders that happened over the weekend would be something that will quicken the reaction there by the government, and also maybe they'll try to do something different. I don't know. It has not happened in the past. This is not the first time. And then when you hear how horrific these murders were, it's just disheartening, and I don't know why Nigerians are not as mad. I don't know, maybe they have been desensitized. They've had so many of these deaths. They've seen so many of these deaths, so it's not even a big deal. This should be a big deal. The government is telling us around 43 people are dead. The UN is telling us it's over 100 people who have died. And so what is really happening? Even one life is just too much of a life to be lost like that. That should be unacceptable. And the rest of Africa, I think, should join in demanding that President Buhari and other leaders across the continent who are not doing enough to ensure the security of their citizens rise up to the occasion and do what's best in terms of protecting the lives of the people who have put them there in power. And these reports that are coming out from South Sudan also are quite worrying. And the peace deal there has always remained on shaky grounds. I think the peace process was built on shaky grounds in the first place, and the approach and the whole process has been flawed. And so they've been just walking on eggshells over here. And after signing that peace deal in February, we were hoping by now things would have moved in terms of the reunification of the army there in South Sudan, and perhaps better relationship between President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. Instead, that is not what is happening. And I don't know why President Salva Kiir find it I don't know why he finds it necessary to go to public forums and address some of these very sensitive issues that he should be doing in closed doors, because they're currently having a disagreement, President Salva Kiir and his first Vice President, Mr. Riek Machar, about a nomination of a certain general that President Salva Kiir is not feeling very comfortable with, that his name was handed over. His name is Johnson Coyne, and his name was handed over by Riek Machar to be nominated as governor, and President Salva Kiir is saying, no, I don't trust this person. He has, he calls him a warmonger, and so I really don't think he's the right person for the job. And Salva Kiir, Riek Machar has maintained, I don't care, this is the person I want, and you are going to put him forth, because I'm not giving you another name here. His name is Johnson Olonye. So now, this now is creating another stalemate and a possible falling out in this relationship here that has been quite fragile, to be honest with you. And so there has not been a lot of progress that has been made, partly because of COVID-19. We can blame it on COVID-19, but also because of the lack of willingness in the leadership there of South Sudan to find a lasting peace. And they're always going back and forth over issues that really are, are not of importance to the people of South Sudan. So now President Salva Kiir goes to church and on occasion there, and is talking and making this address. President Salva Kiir, you're not helping anything. Such a sensitive matter, can you solve it behind the doors? Because if that disagreement, you're speaking about it in public, you're only planting certain seeds, and you're not making it better. There are things that the situation is already sensitive, so don't make it worse, and show some leadership, in regards to this situation. Now, this report that came out from the United Nations that now says President Salva Kiir has locked out the opposition when it comes to the decision-making process, and which was part of the agreement during the signing of the peace deal there. So it's accusing President Salva Kiir, and is saying he's locked out the opposition, he's locked out Mr. Riek Machar and other people when it comes to important decision-making in the country of South Sudan, and is saying the deal The new unity government is founded on the premise that there should be a collegial collaboration in decision-making and continuous consultations within the presidency to ensure effective governance during the transitional period. But unfortunately, this has not been happening there in South Sudan. So this report was handed over to the United Nations Security Council last Wednesday. And part of it says, since the formation of the presidency in February, key accountability measures, including hybrid court, that hybrid court that was supposed to be set to listen to some cases. A lot of people have been killed in South Sudan since the war started in 2013. Over and above 380,000 people have been murdered. Somebody needs to be accountable. So President Salva Kiir has not been very committal in formation of this this hybrid court, and so there has been a problem. And it's quite. I'm just worried because what have they done? What can they show for since February signing of that deal? What can they show for? Japol Terobiro Nyiloa, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know what you make of this situation in South Sudan, and on Nigeria, you're saying really President Buhari is leading the whole Nigeria to hell. That is horrific death. African leaders, they need to team up against Buhari government and his terrorists face the dirty belief and wicked killings to end, if only there but entire continent. It's true, because enough is enough. And what is really sad is that I look at how Nigerians came together and spoke, especially the young people there, during the #EndSARS protest, and their voices were heard and they made a mark. And now see what happened. I don't know why they're not. I will be so mad, because the attitude and aloofness President Buhari has been treating the security of Nigeria is so appalling, and I'm just amazed that there's no outrage. There should be some outrage from Nigeria, whether you come from the north, whether you come from the south, whether you come from the east. An insecurity in one part is an insecurity all over. What makes you think Boko Haram will not come to the other parts of Nigeria, as we know it has been? Boko Haram is in other countries. Boko Haram is terrorizing Niger. As we read there earlier, also in Chad. Boko Haram is terrorizing some parts of Cameroon, Burkina Faso, Chad. So this is something that we should outrage us in the continent. This is something that we should demand action from, and from President Buhari, because enough is enough. Those people were killed through slitting of their throats. Can you imagine how horrific that is? Even if they were just shot by the gun, it's still not acceptable. And even if it's just one person who died, it's still not acceptable. So I don't know why Nigerians are not outraged. The same way they demanded for action during the #EndSARS. That is the same way. That is the same, disgust they should have over these murders that happen. And I think the whole of the continent should rally behind, demanding for accountability from the government of Buhari, demanding that the government of Buhari address this matter of Boko Haram, because it is no longer an insecurity in Nigeria, but this is a threat to the whole of the continent if it's not properly handled. As we have seen, it has continued to grow. So who knows, the next time you'll know they have another sleeper cell in another country. They have joined hands with Al-Shabaab in East Africa. There's another Al-Shabaab in Southern Africa, in Mozambique, and some news I was reading where they'd gone even in Tanzania trying to recruit a few young people from parts of Tanzania. So you see, this is something that must be addressed, and with immediacy. So I don't know, I'm not very happy. And then one of those leaders there a spokesperson in President Buhari's office comes out and says, it was their fault. They're supposed to get the army's clearance before they could access their farms. What kind of rubbish is that? I can't even go to my farm to farm. I have to seek for permission from the army that is doing nothing, the army that is complaining. And also he said that Nigeria does not have enough weapons. Now we need enough weapons. It's just too much. President Buhari is just too much. All right. Thank you so much, Robert, and the rest of you who have watched. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. And of course, we were looking at some of the stories making headlines here in the continent. And that story of Ethiopia is also quite saddening because there's no telling how many people are suffering right now inside of Tigray, a region, as the government has imposed a widespread communication shutdown in that area, so nobody can really access and really know what's really happening. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has come out and said they've taken over the capital city there of Tigray, that is Mekele. On the other side, the TPLF leaders also saying no, and there seems to be regrouping, and they say they'll fight the government with everything in them. And at some point he also said Abiy Ahmed should stop with this madness. Why are you killing your own people? Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. So it's quite and also another sad situation happening here in the country, and so we shall continue to see and follow these stories for you so that we can bring us up to date with what is really happening. And also, as I said there earlier about South Sudan, the arms embargo has been renewed against South Sudan because they are saying South Sudan is misusing these arms given to it. Amnesty International is urging the United Nations Security Council to renew its arms embargo on South Sudan, saying violence, atrocities, and war crimes against civilians have quadrupled this year despite a ceasefire and formation of a unity government in February. And the Security Council first imposed an arms embargo on Sudan on May 2018, which it renewed a year later and again on May 2020. And the reason they're giving to this is they're saying the South Sudan government do not use their weapons responsibly. So if they're not using their weapons responsibly, that means they end up killing the people they're not supposed to be killing. And we've seen what has been happening there in South Sudan. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you here again some other time. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day.